Hello and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, my name's Nick. I'm the host of this podcast and it doesn't always look this lovely, but it will from here on. Got an amazing new podcast studio I'm sitting in it right now. I've been using it a little bit, but the lighting rig's arrived. We've got some cool plants behind us. So if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or something else that's audio only and you want to check out what the new studio looks like, check out our YouTube channel. And that's my shameless way of plugging our amazing YouTube channel. We do post a few things on YouTube that we don't post elsewhere as well. So make sure you check that out. For anyone that has been tuning in for a while, welcome back. It's great to have you. And I am literally days away from making an enormous announcement, one of the biggest evolutions of Winning with Shopify that has ever happened. We are branching out of the podcast world. We'll still be doing podcasts. This is all still going to happen, but we are launching something massive. I've been talking about this for months, possibly a year now. And on Tuesday or Wednesday next week, we are going to release an episode where it's just going to be me and a new colleague that I've hired as well, talking about what we are doing. So enough today, but keep an eye out for that. So we're actually going to post before next Friday. We normally post on Fridays for all of you newbies. Anyway, we are doing a series here in June. You might have heard my rant last week about the big Google leak and all the things we learned about SEO. But we are going to be meeting some founders throughout June, and then July onwards, the podcast is going to evolve. And we've got a whole new thing launching in July, which is very exciting in terms of podcast content. Anyway, enough from me. As I say, this month we're going to be talking to a few founders, a few Shopify store owners, and some very experienced people in the Shopify space. I'm delighted to be joined by a chap called Jake today from Recycled Firefighter. Jake, welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you, Jake. And I've got two questions for you, normally just one. Number one, why are you in your car? And number two, tell us a bit about your background and how you ended up running the business that you're running today.
Yeah, so I'm in my truck. I live in Southwest Florida, and this is the quietest spot that I could find. I'm actually next to my house, so I have a three-car garage that we make fire hose flags in. So I have employees in there right now, so it's kind of loud and noisy. So this is kind of my oasis away from home.
I like it.
Because
Nice.
my kids are also homeschooled too. So it's like, where can I go that's quiet? And here I am in my truck. So yeah,
Nice.
I've been doing this for 12 years. Like you said, recycled firefighter. I started out as a firefighter full time in the US. You work like a 24 on, 48 off schedule. So I had 2 days off that I needed to do something, bring some more money in. I was getting paid like not very much money. So every year at the firehouse, we test the fire hoses, and if they like pop or if they don't pass the test, we just throw them away. So I dug into the dumpster at the firehouse. One of your planes just
I know
fell
one of my
over.
brand new plants has fallen over. So if anyone listening, that noise, I thought someone was coming in the room, but they weren't. It was just a plant falling out. I'm going to leave it. We'll just go with one plant. Sorry, completely interrupted your
Yeah,
flow.
no, that was great. Yeah, I loved it. So yeah, so back in the day, this was 2013 or so,
Mhm.
maybe 2012. I took one of those old fire hoses and took it home, started watching some YouTube videos and taught myself how to sew. And I bought this cheap $99 plastic Stinger sewing machine from Walmart that was not big enough, and I broke a ton of needles on it. But I started making iPad cases, and then I moved on to like all sorts of other stuff, and like tool bags, and gosh, I don't even remember what else I made, but hundreds of different prototypes and products. And I made this wallet. It's called the Sergeant wallet. It's a
Mm.
front pocket wallet. So I iterated on that, and it took probably maybe 100 or 200 different wallet designs. So I settled on this design, and I asked my Instagram followers to kind of help me along, like with the design, what they wanted.
Nice.
And I had a wallet launch over a weekend, and we did like $40,000 in wallet sales
Wow.
over a weekend, which is my
Wow.
whole salary, my whole paycheck at the firehouse for the whole year.
Nice.
So I walked into my major's office the next day, the next shift I was on, and I was like, "How many vacation days do I have?"
Mm.
And he said, "You have three." So I work 5 days every 2 weeks. So I was like, "Right, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. I'm coming in one more shift after today, and then sayonara, see you later."
Wow.
So I quit. That was 2015. So I've been doing it full time since then. And with e-commerce, there's ups and downs, but
Mm.
there's been more ups than downs. So I'm very blessed. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. And I mean, I guess every band is wishing they could have such a big boost as well, like $40,000 in a single weekend. Um, Okay, so I got a few questions about this that I hope are going to be relevant to our listeners as well. Just while you were speaking, the first thing that sprung to mind is, okay, you're using old fire hoses from what was your day job. What's the supply of them? Like, do they last like 6 months, a year, and then they have to be replaced? So there's tons of waste right now, or like, actually, is it like they only get replaced every sort of 10 years at one fire station, but you times that by the whole US, you've got quite a good supply chain. Like, how does supply work for you?
Yeah, it's more the latter.
Mm.
Yeah, there's just a huge supply because every fire department has so many hoses. The hoses, there's different types of hoses, and without
Yeah.
getting into the details,
Yep.
since you don't need to know the types,
Mm.
which I can totally nerd out on all that. But
I'm sure you could.
the hose that
Yep.
the hose that connects the fire hydrant to
Mm.
the fire engine, so all the water that pumps through the engine, and then the smaller hoses that go into the house when you're putting out the fire, we don't use those. We just use like the bigger, it's called large diameter hose, the hose
Mm.
that goes from the hydrant to the fire engine. So those last probably some of them 20 years. If you're at a busy city fire department, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
But there's just so much of it, and it's a polyester double jacketed fire hose, so it's super thick. It's like imagine the thickest canvas type of material that you can find. That's like the outside jacket of the hose, but you can't recycle polyester. So guys, I mean, departments have been throwing this stuff away for years.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is really
So
bad.
what we
Yeah.
do, yeah, so what we do is originally departments would just hear about me and send me hose, but we use so much of it now. What I end up doing is just finding it on city auctions. They just sell it by like the truckload because there's so
Yeah.
much of it. So I'll just buy, thousands, tens of thousands of feet at a time.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine they must be really strong because you've got everything from the water pressure to the temperatures of a burning building that you, as you said, you don't use the one that goes into the house itself, but it's still got to be able to withstand that and be durable for a long period of time. So the reason I ask is we've had people who've found similar sort of niches of making something out of a material you wouldn't expect them to use, but they've had challenges of like there's a chap, for example, who's very good at making amazing watches, but from old dated pocket watches. Problem is, there's only so many pocket watches around. He's one person. There's only so much he can make. So he's gone down the premium end of, if I'm going to make one, how much can I retail that for? As opposed to what you're doing, which is probably still really good price point and good value. And maybe we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But equally, you've got the volume there of, as you say, you've got three garages full of guys at the moment working on them and making too much noise to podcast, which I completely relate to. Hence why I've got this room now. Is my main office has got too many people in it because we're doing too much business and too many staff. But okay, so you get the product. Obviously, you're solving quite a kind of like an eco-friendly problem here of like this stuff is used, it's going to go in the bin. There's nowhere else for it. There's very few people using it. How much do you play on that in the marketing? Like, how much of a focus of your marketing is like, okay, this is an eco-friendly product, and you're stopping something going to waste versus the durability, the reason why it's going to be the last wallet you might ever buy.
Yeah, originally that was tough because I had to catch myself. I thought our customers would be kind of the green type, like save the
Mm.
planet type customers.
Okay.
And originally that was where I thought I wanted to focus the brand because there's kind of three strengths to it. There's the story of like just the fire hose. It's a good story. Guys want to support first responders. And then there's the upcycled is kind of the term,
Mm.
upcycling
Yep.
material, not recycling it. Um, and then the third one is just the hose is so durable, a wallet that's going to last 50 years,
Yep.
whether it's made of fire hose or it'll outlast leather and all this other stuff. So what ended up happening was I don't push. It's kind of a little bit of recycled. I mean, the name is Recycled Firefighter, but this upcycled storytelling, but most of it is just really durable wallets with a good story. So I would say it's kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
not one, it's kind of a combo of the three.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that because I've been on a bit of a mission the last 3 or 4 years with listeners of the podcast because a lot of people have said the same thing you've said. That actually, I set out in one direction thinking it was going to be eco-friendly and green, but the more I got into it, and I imagine there must have been a whole. I mean, you made it sound so simple in the story of like I thought it was going to be that, but it turned out to be this. You must have spent so long talking to customers, and some of them probably said like, "Oh yeah, I love that it's green," and you're like, "Well, that doesn't really help because that's not the reason you bought it." That's like an afterthought. Actually, the reason you bought it is, as you say, is the durability. So how have you kind of gone on that feedback, Luke? How do you, in the earlier days especially, like how did you communicate with customers, find out from them, and really drill down to kind of, and I love this bit of
Mhm.
marketing, like what they say versus the truth. You know, the kind of real reason why, as opposed to them thinking they're telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah, so social media made that really easy at scale. Instagram specifically.
Yep.
Um, I instead of having like I want the brand to be this and holding the brand back and like I need it to be this, what I did was just start my Instagram and what resonated both with photos and videos and content. Like as my Instagram was growing, who are these people following me? And it ended up being a niche inside Instagram called the EDC community. It's like everyday carry community.
Mm.
In the US, there was a show when I was growing up on TV called MacGyver. I don't know if you
Yeah,
watched
yeah, yeah.
US television.
Yep.
So like the guys that carry, like the joke
Mm.
is like you can make a bomb out of like a toothpick and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a piece of gum, whatever type of thing. So those types of guys that in the US they're carrying a gun or a knife or like all the survival
Mm.
type of stuff, not all of it, but what you can carry in your pockets. And that community took really good photos of all
Mm.
their gear. Like it's really compelling. It's like a good photograph. And so that community was really big. And those are the guys that were buying all of my wallets. So
Yep.
that's where I focused. The second part, as far as like where should the brand go, what I did or the feedback, once my email list got bigger, what I did was I set up a type form landing page that asked maybe a series of 5 to 10 questions,
Hmm.
and at the end, I gave the customers like a pretty hefty discount. So it was
Yep.
just an email like, hey, um, I don't even remember what I asked, but that helped. Like, what do you want me to make? What do you like about the brand? Kind of all those
Yeah, yeah.
questions. And it's just one email blast. And then that went into a Google Sheet. And
Mm.
then I just read that. I got several thousand responses from that
Wow.
helped kind of steer the brand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is cool. And as I say, I love the fact that you kind of went on trajectory A and ended up in a completely different place because so many brands do that. And I think luckily you've been on quite, it sounds like quite a pioneering project of like, let's just find a community that want to buy this stuff and we'll modify the stuff for them so that actually we're selling the right product to the right people. And for people listening as well, like this is a kind of have a quick look in the mirror moment. And I've been there myself. So many brands that I've seen over the years have failed because they're so gung ho on like, no, 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 those aren't our audience. This is our audience. And it's like your audience really should be the people that want to use this product. So build it around them, market it around them, and talk to them. And talk to them with your marketing, your information, your surveys, et cetera, et cetera. And I think some brands have been really slow to do that, much to their discredit. But it sounds like, as you say, you very quickly went like, do you know what? The people buying my product are not the ones I thought were going to be. So let's start adapting and talking to them and really focusing on them. People are always worried as well. What if we lose the majority of our customers and whatever? It's like, you don't have to do it overnight. It can be a slow turning ship. And every time you make a decision towards that, you must have been seeing conversion rate and revenue kind of just nudging their way up right the way from like, okay, we're going to release a new product that's got exactly the right name that speaks to this audience group we think we're targeting, and bang, it's a bestseller. You must have had a few moments like that throughout the years as well.
Yeah, it's tough because product launches that just hit that niche perfectly do really well.
Mm.
So there's the kind of argument about am I passionate about this business? Because like
Mm.
if you're selling something that sells well to a customer base that you're not really passionate about, that's tough. So it's like that's the hesitancy like in an owner founder. It's like, well, if I get away from like my true passions, am I
Yeah.
going to want to do this business 5 years from now? But
Mm.
it's like, okay, well, do I want to be super passionate about this amazing backpack? We make backpacks
Yeah, yeah.
to this one customer that I can sell 50 of them a year?
Mm.
Or do I want to be kind of a little less passionate, but I'm selling 5,000 or 50,000 a year? It's like,
Mm.
money is a motivator to some degree because it's going to be the same amount of work regardless for you. You
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what I mean? And I mean, unless you're making all 50,000 bags yourself, which hopefully you're
Mm.
not.
Well, I'm yeah, not quite. I think that the lesson that I've certainly learned down that that same thread though, is that I said this the other day. Someone asked me at a conference, and I was being interviewed, like, if I went back to 15-year-old me, what would I say to myself? And I wouldn't tell myself any of it, because if I said what I was doing now, I never would have got into this. But I love what I'm doing. Like, even this podcast. So when I first took over the podcast and some other parts of a business from this lady called Caroline, who was the host up until about 3 years ago, and this plant's really close, so I've just hit this one. But yeah, until I took over things from Caroline, I didn't buy it because I was like, okay, I really want to be podcasting, but podcasting is the only thing that is still running from that operation. And I absolutely love it. You know, the amount of people I've met like yourself, but I think it's a good example that sometimes we can be scared to change our trajectory. But actually, the things that really make us happy are never the things we focus on. I know it's getting quite deep, but the things we focus on often are like, oh, when this happens, I'm happy. But actually, for me, it's watching businesses thrive. So I used to be really precious about, okay, I want to do PPC and SEO, which is what our agency do. I want to do this like in exactly this way because that suits me. I found that didn't suit anyone else. No one wanted to buy it like that. No one worked on it like that. And actually, what I've really found exciting, and I'm someone who gets distracted easily, is every single one of our clients, we've got to know them really well and understand all the nuances of their business. And as a result of learning all the nuances, every single client, although we're still doing PPC and SEO, it's completely different. So when we look at one client's marketing, it's like, this is, although we might be running the same sort of performance max campaign in Google or something, it's a completely different setup. And the ad copy we're using, the things we're focusing on, the new ranges coming out, there's a campaign coming up where they've got some celebrities doing something. All of that starts to become really, really unique. And then some businesses, you have to kind of get rid of that kind of, and you probably had this in your business as well. Like, you have to get rid of some of those pretenses of like, we did that once and it didn't work, but someone else is telling me to really try it. So now we've got to try it and see if it happens. And have you got any examples where you've had that, where you've sort of given it a go, it's not worked, and someone else has come into the business, or something you've seen someone else do it and gone, do you know what, we should give that another try actually, and eat a little bit of humble pie and give it a go?
Yeah, so that's one of the most recent wins that we found
Okay.
with our brand. The AI messenger bots or messenger ads on Meta came out probably, what has it been? I don't know, 3 or so years.
Yeah.
Like all the messenger stuff was big back in the day. ManyChat it's still going, but ManyChat came out and everybody was using it. And I definitely set up all the flows back then, and it didn't bring as much return as what I wanted. So we just switched back to kind of the standard email marketing, like conversion
Yeah.
ads on Meta and
Yeah.
everything. But then last fall or last winter, I was trying to scale up these fire hose flags that we're making, and I was having a hard time because
Mm.
just we would get past a certain point of ad spend on Meta, and the ROAS would just get crushed. So it's like, well, how do I scale? Because Facebook obviously doesn't want us to spend beyond this point, or
Yep.
when if we spend beyond this point, it's just like, the ROAS goes, just it's not worth it. So
Mm.
I started researching. I was like, well, let's go back to this other idea, messenger ads. Chat GBT had came out, and I was like, dude, there's got to be an option. So I reached out to a few companies that were kind of doing something, and one of the guys quoted me a $20,000 setup fee, like upfront. I was like, dude,
Mm.
okay, no thanks, but let's try something else. Like maybe I can do it myself. Like the famous,
Yeah.
like just the standard, like founder, like I'll just do it
Bootstrap
myself,
it.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bootstrap. Yeah. So I was like, it can't be that hard, and it absolutely was. And I did it myself, and I have a I have a guy that helped me. I didn't do it all myself, but
Mm.
I basically went down the rabbit hole of what if we just use like a chat GBT type
Yep.
bot that can interact within Facebook Messenger and Instagram direct message, and just sell customers there. And that was the biggest win. I guess to describe the workflow is what we're doing is it's a meta ad both on Facebook and Instagram. It's a giveaway. So you don't have to buy anything. It's just, hey, we're
Yeah.
giving away this fire hose flag.
Yeah.
And it's a picture that Chat GBT generated. It's not even a picture of the product. It's
Well.
like a fire hose that's on a roll, and the text just says message me below to enter.
Mm.
I'm giving away a free fire hose flag. It doesn't even look that good.
Right.
But
But
for
it's
some
free, so
reason,
there's the data capture.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason well, I mean, it's free, and for some reason it works.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
that then triggers off a bot that I built out. There's a few apps. One of them is called Go High Level. It kind of holds everything together. And then the AI bot is through a company called Zappy Chat.
Mm.
But we hit launch, and the target was the whole United States, 18 and up, no targeting,
Yep.
female, men, women, whatever. And we started getting 25-cent emails, and then it went up to 45-cent emails. So, and we spent $500 a day, we spent $1,000 a day. That's kind of like where it capped.
Mm.
And collecting 2,000 emails a day, 2,500
Yeah.
emails a day, and we're just putting those into our Klaviyo flows. So, and we're retargeting all those people because those people are interacting on Messenger and
Mm.
Instagram direct message.
Nice.
So if you can get those customer contacts for 25 cents or 50 cents, the retargeting is super cheap. And that's what we're using to scale. Like 80% of our ad spend is on a giveaway ad, and then 20% is just retargeting.
Yep.
And that has allowed us to scale. Like, just we're not doing conversion ads anymore. Like, it's just not
Mm.
worth it. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like all of since January this year, that's been our whole marketing strategy as far as paid ads go.
Wow.
And it's been
Nice.
crazy
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned before we hit record, this is actually a product you've now created, isn't it? It's not just something you're using internally.
Yeah, and I feel bad because I'm not a marketer. I'm more of like a brand builder guy.
Mm.
So once I hit this, I don't know if I want to call it a gold mine, but it's definitely the biggest win that our brand has had probably
Yep.
in 5 or 7 years. I was like, dude, this can help some other people. So
Mm.
it's a service. It's called jakestar.ai as my website, but it's a monthly service that I set up the bots, I train the bots, and I launched these giveaway ads on Meta for people. And so far we have, I mean, in the last month, we've added five or seven e-commerce clients. That's kind of where where I love to work with. It can help other brands too, but e-commerce is just so easy.
Yeah.
It syncs with your Shopify, it syncs with Klaviyo.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so fun to watch these brands. Like, one of the guys sells beef tallow soap, and he was kind of hesitant about it. And he's just so happy. Like, he's just adding it. The best way to describe it is just list building. So you're just building your list for super cheap. Like, imagine
Yeah.
adding 30,000 emails per month. Like,
Yeah,
that's huge.
absolutely. And I think, and so many brands as well, I think as brands are younger, they don't fully understand the value of increasing their email size because they haven't probably optimized email to work yet. So actually more people on email doesn't necessarily mean more revenue yet. But certainly, yeah, you reach a point where you're like, okay, we know who our audience are. We've got quite a mature product. Our email flows, we've been running them a year or two now, and we've really optimized and tested them. And, like having long emails, short emails, having 50 buttons on them, one button on them, some of them just being like, we have a gift for you, click here. Some of them saying like, here's our really new complicated product and let's introduce it completely on email and see if we get a click at the end of it. So I think we did a whole series actually. It was about 18 months ago with retention.com. And they were talking about how they can obviously, you're nodding like you obviously know what retention.com are. I'm so angry about retention.com. They're brilliant. Just I'm not allowed to use it because I'm in the UK. I can use it for US clients,
Oh,
but we have GDPR, the EU. Well, we don't even have the
mm.
EU anymore, and we still have all their rules here in the UK. But let's not get too political today, or I get complaints. But certainly, we can't do that. We're not allowed to just like anyone who comes on the site. We can't buy email data. We can't do any of that. So actually, a tool like yours, where it's like we're messaging through a platform that they're actually signed up to, Instagram, to Facebook, so they have the whole Messenger suite within that, and getting email addresses that way. We had a brand on called Beast Gear, who very, very popular here in the UK. We had their original founder on who sold it, and he was saying that they used to do a thing on quite a similar thing. It's a bit more manual pre-AI. Well, certainly pre the way it is today, but they would message people and sort of say, what kind of athlete are you? And then put them into like one of three segmentations, give them exclusive offers based on, you just go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, try to stay healthy. I'd say I'm aspiring to be like that. And then you got the kind of like, almost a professional athlete, but it's not my profession. So I take it really seriously and compete and stuff, but it's not my profession. And then you have the professional athletes as well. And they kind of put them all into three buckets and had a completely different set of email flows. All the content that went out to them was like, how to trim that 0.1 second off your lap time or whatever, compared with someone going like, how to lose belly fat. And it's like a completely different sphere of of customers. But certainly, I think, I mean, email is so powerful if you can get it to work. I guess the thing you've got at your fingertips is you make one change and you can test it on 2,000 new people every single day. So it's a much shorter timeline, isn't it, before you actually find something that sticks and works through your Klaviyo flows.
Yeah, if you have all the Klaviyo flows built out, you have your campaigns. If all that's dialed in, it's like, well, how do I scale that? How do I bring in more revenue? So, okay, well, you need cheap opt-ins,
Yeah.
targeted opt-ins, and this is what fills the top of funnel, the cold leads, whatever. This is
Hmm.
what I mean for. I haven't seen it go above $1 in email yet, no matter how much I spend with zero targeting.
Wow.
So if you know what your customer lifetime value is, the giveaway emails are going to be less valuable. Obviously, it's a giveaway,
Yep.
but even at that, 50-cent emails, and we're the opt-in is like 90%. Almost everybody is giving us their
Yeah.
emails. We also ask for an SMS, which I know you can't do over there either. Or
We
maybe
could
you
do
can.
more of that than we could do buying email addresses, but they still have to
Okay.
opt in. And there's technically a thing in writing called double opt in, which is like they opt in on a web page, they get sent a text, and they have to reply saying, yes, I did opt in. And it's like, and then the government wonders why our economy is struggling. It's because no one can actually buy anything. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, yeah. So the opt-in for the SMS
Hmm.
numbers is like 60%, so that's pretty high too.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's more of a top of funnel thing. You definitely need to eke out as much money as you can from these people with email marketing and everything. You need to know your numbers,
Yeah.
but it's more of a top of funnel. It's not
Yeah.
kind of what you do right off the bat unless you have all your Klaviyo flows built out.
Yeah. And I think on top of that, something that I find myself talking about this with every single guest we get on, whether it's like yourself, like merchant side or it's supplier side. If you don't have a decent product and any traction with it, this could actually cause a lot of damage because you're going to such a volume now that if you're telling 2,000 people a day, using that number, to come buy this product that has like bad reviews, it's not quite right, it doesn't really fix the problem, or like we're saying right at the start, you've not really honed in like who it's for or what the target or the actual kind of brand marketing message of this thing is, then you're doing all of this. I find so many brands that are focused on the wrong thing sometimes. Certainly the ones that I would say are just they're close, but they're still the other side of the line where they've not quite worked out what their product is and who it's for and how it fits into society. Once you've done that, I think these scaling tools are fantastic, and certainly most of the clients we work with are the other side of that line, or they're like nearly there, and we're dragging them over, going like, right, come on, be less precious, let's adapt the product a little bit. We still do get some clients, and you must have some of this as well, where it's like we've got a load of stock and we just can't shift it. Like, I imagine I don't know how you're set up in terms of supply chain, but do you guys tend to kind of make all the stock and have it on the shelves? And if something's popular, you make more of it, or do you make completely on demand as soon as an order pops in?
Um, no, it's definitely the first one. Like
Mm.
we make all this stuff and then it sits at a 3PL like a warehouse in Kentucky. Kentucky is kind of central to most of the US.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's where our 3PL is. But yeah, the best sellers we definitely double down on. Right now we're making the flags in Florida and then we're shipping those to the 3PL. So
yeah.
we just can't keep up with those, like no matter how many we make. Yeah, I mean, I thought about doing a more high-end on-demand type product, like maybe a $2,000 flag, because right now the flags are 200 and 400.
Okay.
It's like a wall art, like you hang it up on your wall. It's not like
Yeah,
hanging from a flagpole. Um, but yeah, like a $2,000 one we could do an on-demand. I haven't had much luck with the on-demand stuff. It's just,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know, it's not my style.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's a big commitment, isn't it? Because as soon as someone's placed an order, they're now every minute getting more and more angry that the product's not arrived. So it's like there is
Mm,
that pressure and that demand that if you got 10 orders today and you're like, okay, we haven't got a chance to fulfill them for 2 weeks now, suddenly you're giving out little discounts and apologizing, if you're
mm,
being nice. And if you're not, you're just leaving the customer in limbo without any products. And eventually they're going to say, like, look, it's not even arrived yet. Can we just cancel the thing? And it's like, okay, we did all that work to get that product, we've made it, and now we've not even sold it at the end. So yeah, there's definitely a level of risk in that. There's obviously the security of no warehousing, to some degree, because you sort of make it and send it straight out. But yeah, it totally depends on your business model. But asking about that, about the production, and kind of leading that into a bigger question, I would say is what are some of the things on the horizon for you? Obviously, you've got the AI stuff absolutely firing by the sound of things and pumping your email database. What's on the horizon for you guys? Like, is there any kind of medium to long term targets you're aiming for? Is there anything that you're looking at and currently nervous about that you're like, do you know what? I think this is going to kick us in the teeth at some point. Legislation changes, global changes. Like, what's on your mind?
Yeah, the US manufacturing is just the pricing after COVID for these bags, the backpacks. So
Mm,
the margins are just thinner and thinner.
yeah,
So it's like, well, what are we going to do about that? That's been happening since I started. Like a Chinese bag, if we made a bag in China, which we don't,
yeah,
that bag would be like $20. But that same bag here is $100.
yeah,
So do you want to sell a bag for $200 and make $100 and you eat up your cash flow because you got to spend $100 on each bag? Or do you just want to sell the bag for like maybe 80 and it only costs $20? So that's why
mm,
most backpacks are cheap. Like the really expensive ones are expensive because it costs so much to make. That's been for cash flow purposes, that's kicked us in the teeth just along the whole process, man. Like I
yeah,
mean, um solving that problem is just not solvable in the US. Like you just have to go somewhere else. You have to go to Mexico, you have to go to Vietnam. You just can't do it here. Um, the other one, a win that's coming up is a subscription box that I'm doing. I did
well,
a subscription box a couple years ago that every month I would make like a custom product and I was doing it myself. And it got so overwhelming. We got up to like I think 750 subscribers. It was a $50 a month box.
nice.
And I was doing them all myself.
Yeah,
The money was good, but it was like, dude, okay, that's all I'm doing. I can't do anything else. Like I'm
yeah, yeah.
sewing all this stuff
I've been
myself.
there. Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm like, this is not worth the money. I just want to, claw my eyes out if I have to sew another hour.
yeah.
So what it's like I'm going cross-eyed. I can't sit here anymore. No
Yeah.
matter how many podcasts I listen to while I sew, like I just want to stop sewing right now. So we're launching a quarterly subscription box. That's 200.
Nice.
It's a $200 custom backpack, and there's going to be 4 different products every year. So I have that lined up. Like those bags are coming in, I think next month. And I'm not making them myself, so I'm pretty excited about that
Nice.
because
Yeah, yeah.
it was easier than what I thought. Like if you have a really good fan base that follows your stuff and you make good gear, guys were willing to pay. They didn't even know what they were getting. Like the
Oh,
the the custom or the unique product every month. It was like
yeah.
a mystery box. I didn't have photos. It just arrived on your door. They didn't know what it was.
Yeah. But you've
And
got that relationship with them. That's the key, isn't it? Is they trust you as a brand because when they do order, you deliver. And now you're choosing what arrives at their front door as a mystery box. It's like every time it's good and there's a reason why I want this product. So I think you've built a really strong relationship there. And I would say most brands absolutely not just struggle, but often fail to do that. And they're just as big as the price they could put on a product or the kind of scale of products they can have on their website rather than I say building a proper brand.
yeah, that was surprising. Like people loved, I agree. Like when you build that relationship, you build that
Yeah.
trust, they're like super happy, but people started getting pissed because then I wasn't making anything else. It's
Right.
like guys were like, okay, like can you make the other stuff too? So people were still mad. A lot of people were happy, but other people were mad. It's like, dude, you have to restock this other thing. It's been out of stock for 2 years.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah,
okay, I have to let it die. So like
yeah,
letting a $40,000 a month subscription box die, I was like,
yeah. It
I
hurts.
definitely shed a few tears off of that one. But at the same time, it's like,
Yeah,
okay, now I can go fishing during the day. I live in Florida. It's like
yeah,
now I can go
nice.
fishing instead of spending all day behind the sewing machine. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah. I mean we've had the same thing. Like there's a project we do that's super popular called a digital audit, and we just go through like every single marketing channel. We install stuff like Hotjar, Microsoft Clarity. We watch people using your website and just be like, here's all the big problems with it, and here's the big conundrum that you haven't solved, which is quite often is brand. Is like, what is our brand for? What does it stand for? How does it work? And we do those. The problem sort of 5 years ago is I was the only one that could do it. And I remember one month, like they take a good like 3 or 4 days, these things, of someone's time. I remember one month we had like 10 of them turn up and I was like, I'm not doing this. And my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, she said to me, Yeah, she was like, she was like, shut up, there's so much money. Like, just do it, like cancel everything and do it. And I was like, all right. So I did. And I took the money that month and was like, I can't do this anymore. So then I
Mm.
changed my focus, sort of similar to what you're doing, of going, all right, there's that for you, it was $40,000 a month that you said goodbye to, but you've got to look at that bigger, longer term machine. And so one of the hardest things I think for some of us is like you've done exactly the same. You started your own business, building your own products and making your own products. And everybody sort of buys you initially, but turning that into an operation is really powerful. And I used to be so paranoid, like getting any of my staff basically to do anything. I'm like, they won't do it as well as me. They won't say the things I would say on a client call. Until a client said to me one day, like, if I'm brutally honest, those two people from your team that I talked to, they're better than you because they reply to emails immediately, and things like that are important to me. And they reply instantly. They do a really good job, and I know they spend days on it where you would spend hours on it. So although I get your experience, it's like they're better. And I'm like, great, I've nailed it. Like that is the scalable model. I can, and you probably got a similar thing. You can manage like 20 to 50 people rather than you just being you with like one or two other people constantly asking you questions like, what do you want me to make next? I don't know. I'm busy. I'm busy doing this one.
Mm. Yeah, it's like your ego, because at some degree, like the type of mentality that is a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, you kind
Mm,
of live and die on that bootstrap mentality. So
yeah.
sometimes what comes along with that is an ego. It's like what you said, I'm better than these other two guys, and it turns out you weren't. I'm not trashing you, but like that's happened to
Yeah.
me
Yeah. No,
too. It's
absolutely.
like, wow, like I thought I was better, I could do this better myself,
Mm,
but delegating stings a little. So it's like,
yeah.
and even if they're like 80% as good as you, like what's your time worth? You could do something
Mm,
else. So like
absolutely.
I constantly ask myself, and you meet other entrepreneurs and you can tell almost immediately that that person is what's holding the business back. Like how
Yeah.
they're talking,
Yeah.
like you just know. So it's like how I ask myself regularly, like, how am I holding the business back? Or am I a $50 million business guy? Do I want to manage a bunch of people?
Yeah.
Or do I want a lifestyle business that's low seven figures, but less stress and more free time?
Yep.
So it's like, am I actually holding my business back on purpose? Not for my ego, not because I'm not listening, not because I'm not
Yeah.
open, but I'm
Yeah.
purposefully holding it back. And that's kind of where I've settled.
Mm,
It's like, I don't want this other thing. I want more free time to hang out with my kids. They're
yeah.
homeschooled. I want more free time to go and catch fish, like that's what I want.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I said to
so yeah.
I said to someone else who runs a similar business to yours, probably a little bit smaller and a few less staff. And he said to me, like, I just can't find the right staff, Nick. They're all horrendous. None of them do a good job. Like, I hire them with all the best interests. I invest all this time and money in them and it doesn't work. And I sort of said, like, all right, talk me through this. And about 5 minutes in, I said, look, I've known you for like 20 years. I'm gonna be really honest with you here. You're a terrible manager. Absolutely horrendous. Like one of the worst I've heard. And he was like, what do you mean terrible? And I said, firstly, you're sitting in the pub moaning to me, and I've never met any of your staff. And I just kind of went down this road of like, you have no respect for them. You don't manage them properly. And I asked him a few questions about one in particular, was his like most senior person. He had about 7 or 8 staff at this point. And I said, like, you just called him an idiot. Like, talk me through what he does all day. And I was like, give me an example of a project he's done. And I interrupted him, and sort of, as soon as he said what the project was, and he went off on one about how bad they were, I said, tell me first of all, like, how quickly between telling him you wanted to do the project and getting on his back, going, when's it going to be due? Or, like, when have you done it? Have you looked at it yet? Is it done? He was like, well, it's an hour job. So I waited a full day. I said, no, entrust him and delegate it to him, and he'll do a good job, which means he's going to need to trip over a few times and fail. That's what you need to do. And
Yeah.
it's a really hard lesson I've learned as well, is sometimes what you'd be sitting there watching someone do something and you're like, this isn't going to work. But if I step in now and tell them, they won't fully understand the consequences of it not working, and they won't know what signs to look for. So let's wait for it to go south, but not far enough it actually causes a problem. But let's wait for it to start to go around and be like, let's have a quick chat and just ask questions. Like, why do you think it's not going as well as it could? Where do you think the turning point would have been? When is it due? Okay, have we got long enough to go back and turn and go the other way now that you've learned these things? All right, we'll try that and let's see where we are. And suddenly one day is a success, and you trust them with everything. And he did have like one or two people in the team he said were absolutely amazing. But and if you're listening, mate, you know exactly who you are. I don't know if you listen to my podcast or not, but But I do think it's a really important point about, you say about the lifestyle business versus actually wanting to build an operation. And the operation is all the things we discussed earlier about being unprecious and going, I don't care what color it is in terms of brand. I don't care what products we really sell, as long as there's a market that want to buy it. We're providing something good, and we're providing a good service, and we've got happy customers, and we're making profit and all of that. And I think it's a really hard lesson that sometimes when people are nearly bankrupt, that's when they have that realization of like, okay, I've got two options here: go bankrupt, be less precious. which one's it going to be?
Mm,
And sort of see where we go. But look, we've been chatting for quite a while. As we finish off, Jake, just if you were to pin down kind of one definitive moment or lesson, we might have already spoken about it, we might not. What's one thing you would say to anybody else listening who's like a few steps behind you or even in front of you, but things are stagnating and they need to get things going again? What's one thing you'd say to them?
that's a great question. One
Mm,
thing that I would say, if the business is going stagnant, um, I would say try and stay creative minded. So don't rule out any option. Like try this, try that, because
mm,
a lot of times it's trial and error.
yep,
What you think is going to work, it doesn't work, and what you think wouldn't work ends up it does work.
yep,
So I would say stay creative in your
mm,
solutions. Don't be small minded, because there's so many options out there for marketing, and there's so many people saying this works, that doesn't
yep,
work, this is how I would do it. And if you can do it profitably and you don't dump a lot of money and lose a lot of money in some of these things, like you can try a lot of different options and figure out what works. um the other option is just being um honest with yourself.
mm,
Like I've been doing this for 12 years, and there's definitely burnout cycles, there's definitely highs, there's definitely lows.
mm,
So the four burner theory, I don't know if you've heard about that, kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
resonated with me.
yeah,
So you have your work, your friends, your family, and your health. So it's like you turn the work burner up, and you got to turn all the other ones down.
yeah,
So you start to lose your health, you lose your friends, your family falls apart. So
mm,
a balance, learning that balance with those highs and lows, I think is probably the other thing that I would do. Like if stuff isn't working,
mm,
um, maybe you need to reevaluate. Like, are you burning out? Are you just not creative? Like, have you lost your juice? Is it you? Do you need to focus on your friends or your family or
mm,
your health? It's like um, because I've been there. When stuff isn't working, I'm just tired. It's like I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have the mental capacity to make it work.
yeah,
So maybe you need to sell the business. Maybe you need to hire a manager for a certain period and,
mm,
you know, chill out a little bit. That
yeah,
would be
yeah.
my advice.
No, I think it's good. And you reminded me of you probably heard of Tony Robbins. I've read a couple of his books over the years, and he was talking about like the going back to the four burners. The way he puts it actually is if one of them upgrades, so work becomes bigger, which is going to come with more stress, more time. Well, not necessarily more time, but certainly more demand. Like there's more things floating around your head, less of it's in your control, the more customers and humans you have working for you. There's
Mm.
more going on. So he said, well, if you upgrade one area, you've got to upgrade all of them to keep that platform as flat as possible. So he said, actually, one of the hard, I find this fascinating. One of the hardest things he said that founders and entrepreneurs struggle with is when they start to make a bit of money, is then actually investing that in like just going on holiday, having fun, getting married and having a beautiful wedding. These things make you happy. And without them, it's just work. So sometimes we look at those things and go like, okay, I'm not going to buy a really fancy car because it's really flash. I don't need it. It's not worth the money. I should, do something else with it. But if work's getting more demanding, you got to give yourself a reward. Otherwise, it's like it just goes like this, and eventually it topples, and you're like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And you stop, all these people become unemployed, customers don't have products, supply chains break down because there's no business anymore. And you got to think of all these other responsibilities. I think that whole kind of leveling up thing, I think is, it's a really powerful concept. Definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way. Like, because my thought was, can I turn all of them on high? No, my house is gonna
Mm.
burn down.
Yeah,
It's
true.
like, no, I can't. Like, I no, I need. Like, that's funny.
Mm.
Maybe that's my ego, or it's a limiting belief. Like, I have to turn the business
Mm.
down. Um, yeah, dude, that's super interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I've always worked that way, but then I'm in my mid 30s and I still seem to be full of energy. And certainly my wife keeps me grounded. I'll be like, I really want one of those. And she's like, no, you don't. I'm like, no, I don't. I look at a shiny object. But I certainly, the one thing I would back though is like the harder you're working and the more stress you've got in a work environment, it's all manageable if you work it out. But I think certainly I mean, one of the best things that I've ever spent any money on, and it cost me £1,000, is the most incredible mattress to sleep on my bed. And even when we bought that, my wife was a little bit like, we don't need that. We've already got the same mattress. I said, no, it's like 8 years
Mm.
old. We should upgrade it. It's a better mattress. And it's a 30-day money back guarantee. Let's just try it. If it doesn't work. And about a week in, she sort of turned to me one night and she just like, I am so comfortable. And I was like, I know. When
Mm.
was the last time we woke up in the middle of the night? Like maybe it's just in our heads. Wherever it is, it's the best £1,000 I've ever spent. I'm sleeping well. If I don't, I'm the kind of person that like I can't. Like Tony Robbins sleeps like 3 or 4 hours a night. If I did that once, like we had our work summer social on Friday, and we were up until the early hours of the morning having a few drinks and partying the whole team. And most of us Monday morning were like, I'm still struggling, and it's like,
Mm.
so I need
Yeah.
that good sleep. But yeah,
I just bought something similar
yeah.
to that before we move
Mm.
on. Have you ever heard of a chili pad? They make them in
No.
the US.
Oh.
It's a water cooled bed topper. Like in
Oh,
Florida, like
I have
our
seen
our
these. Yeah, yeah,
bedroom is like, yeah, our bedroom's like 80 degrees at night.
yeah.
So I was like, dude, I'm sweating to death. I can't sleep.
Mm.
We either buy another air conditioner or I put this on, and dude, it's been amazing. Like you can like set it down to 55 degrees and it
Nice.
just goes on the top of your bed. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
just sleep through the night, nice and chilly. It's
My
so
wife's always
nice.
cold. She'd complain really bad about that. Certainly, I would like it. I hardly ever use a
You can turn
duvet
it up
usually.
too. You can turn it up to like 120.
Don't tell her that. That'd be bad for me. But anyway, look, Jake, I really appreciate your time. We're going to draw things down to land there. But yeah, really appreciate your time, Jake. It's been so good to have you on. And yeah, thanks for the insights you've shared. And yeah, being really humble in it as well. Yeah, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Great stuff. And for everybody listening at home, as I normally say now, see you next Friday for the next episode, but I won't. Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Keep your eyes peeled. We're about to announce something that I've been planning for a year, invested loads of time and energy into, and we're going to see how it rolls out. And we want you guys involved in that. So next week is going to be a short episode with a new member of my team's going to be on here as well, and also some amazing announcements. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again midweek, and then we'll have a normal episode on Friday as well. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and thanks so much for tuning in today.